Welcome to today's webinar. It's a fireside chat with CyberArk about maximizing engagement and insights from your customer and partner advisory boards. We're recording the webinar, so we'll send the recording afterwards. If you have any questions, type them in the Q&A box. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll see if we have time at the end. And feel free to also type in the chat box. So today we're doing introductions, a quick audience poll, and we're going to have a Q&A conversation with Cindy Baptiste of CyberArk, and we'll close out with some CAB resources. Very brief about Ignite. We're only dedicated to creating, designing, managing, and facilitating customer advisory boards and partner advisory boards. We've completed over 300 engagements. We have global experience. And many B2B companies use our industry best practices on CABs that we've developed over all of these years. So I'm going to hand it over to Catherine for a quick intro, and then Cindy, and then we'll do an audience poll.
Okay.
Go ahead,
Hi.
Catherine.
Thanks, Tatiana. I'm Catherine Gibson. I'm based in New York City. I've been working with Ignite for 7 years and have been working in the advisory board space for at least 15 years at this point, and happy to be here with you all today. Cindy?
Hi, really happy to be here with you guys today, and thanks to Ignite for inviting me. I'm Cindy Baptiste, VP of Global Partnerships at CyberArk. I've been here for about 4.5 years, and my role is really execution around our channel strategy. So my team and I own the partner program, partner success, partner enablement, and we do a lot of work aligning all of our internal functions with the channel, so that we spend a lot of time focusing internally to make sure things are smooth.
Awesome. Thanks, Cindy. I'm very excited that you're here today. And first, let's do a quick poll so we can get a feel. What's the status of your current CAB or PAB program? Don't have one, haven't started, trying to launch. Existing program is on hold. Your current program is in progress, or you want to expand and add some new boards. I'll just give it another 10 seconds or so, and then we can see the results. So let me end the poll, and I'll share the results. So do you see the results, Catherine and Cindy? A majority are expanding the program or running, their existing program as is. And a few people here don't have a program yet or are trying to launch.
Awesome.
And it's good that nobody's on hold.
Yeah, we have some veterans too, so maybe we can learn some new best practices.
Definitely.
So go ahead, Catherine. I move the slide and you can kick off the Q&A portion.
Okay. So I think we wanted to give an overview first about CyberArk's partner advisory board. Now it's interesting because many people do customer advisory boards or customer advisory councils. You may have guessed from hearing Cindy's introduction and working in the partnership space and going to market with partners that CyberArk has a partner advisory council and not a customer advisory council. So with this kind of slide as a backdrop, there's a lot on here, but Cindy, can you just highlight for us give us an overview of the board? How big is it? What does it look like geographically? Who are the types of members who comprise the board, the council?
Yeah, for sure. I should also say we do have a customer advisory board. I don't participate in that, though. I lead our partner advisory council. So that's what we're going to focus on for this discussion. So you see some of the stats here, but just at a high level, we have 3 different regions, 3 primary regions in CyberArk. So what we've done is we've created a global advisory council and we've split them into their regions. So we have about 35 global members, and between each region, Americas, APJ, and EMEA, we've got between 12 and 13 partner individuals that participate both at the regional and global level. When we kicked this off a couple of years ago, we knew that we wanted partners to stay with us for a while, because the objective is to really, develop a trusted advisor relationship, right? That's kind of the whole point. So what we started with, and we will continue with, is a 2-year duration. So when the partners are invited to participate and they accept, they join us for 2 years. What we do is 2 in-person meetings every year. We do 1 global, and it's usually in the spring, Q2 timeframe. And then we'll go out into each region and do 1 regionally, usually in the Q4 timeframe. So we do get a good perspective of things that are happening that are important by region, as well as at the global level. In terms of the types of members that we have participate, I mean, these are, some of our strongest partners. We have everybody from the, global system integrators and advisories down to regional system integrators and VARs and distributors. And so the partner type is kind of across the board. We have MSPs that participate as well. What else can I tell you about it? The one of the really important things about our council is that this was driven by an executive sponsor, which was our SVP of Global Channels, Chris Moore, and the realization that we have a very strong partner community at CyberArk, and we wanted to take advantage of that. We have been running customer advisory boards for a while, and there seemed no reason to not start a partner advisory board as well, because we really do have some very strong members with very strong feedback that really wanted to be more programmatic about how they gave us that feedback, right?
Yes, so Cindy, was there something specific that caused this to happen, to say like, hey, we want a partner advisory council and we're going to start one?
It really did start when Chris and I kind of went around the globe and started meeting with partners, right? Not long after we joined. And we realized like something very unique to CyberArk and I've got a very long career. I'm old. What I've seen at CyberArk with our partner community that we have on the channel is that they are coming to us and asking us to do more. Instead of us pushing things to them, they're trying to pull from us. And we thought, like, we keep hearing feedback from all around the world. Why not get them all together and be really programmatic about it and get feedback on things that we need their feedback on, right? Is it product roadmap and strategy? Is it packaging? Is it our go-to-market? Is it success and services? We had a lot of things that we were trying to do at the time that we started this, not the least of which was move into the subscription and SaaS world, right? And we thought this is a great opportunity for us to start to gather feedback from partners in that consistent way. We also were lucky that we had an amazing CEO sponsor who, as soon as we mentioned this, he was on board. Let's do it. I want to hear from partners. So and in fact, we've had a lot of the ELT come through each of the advisory boards that we've held. And so it's, we have very strong support from our leaders, which is important.
Yes. Yeah. Even, and that, I think that's one of the things you talk about, benefits to members, is access to executives within CyberArk. And you certainly have fulfilled that with them. So I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit more later, but when thinking more about when you were starting the pack, when did you realize that you couldn't or shouldn't or didn't have the bandwidth to do it on your own, that you needed to bring in outside experts?
So we're a little bit lucky in that Chris and I have both done this before. So it wasn't our first rodeo. And we know that it can be a full-time job just managing these advisory councils when you're doing them right. So we knew that right off the bat that we couldn't do it alone. We needed some help structuring it. We also did kick it off in COVID too. So there were a lot of kind of unknowns as to how do you start an advisory board right in the middle of this global pandemic where nobody's traveling and they haven't seen each other in a long time, right? So there were some, interesting things. So yeah, that was, we knew right
in our first meeting.
That's right. And full disclosure
all
for
the way
attendees. Yeah, right, exactly. Full disclosure for all the attendees. Catherine is our advisory partner. So she's been with us since the beginning. But yeah, that first meeting was, I think it was October of 2021. So people had just started going out into the world again in business. And half the people couldn't show. One guy showed and he had COVID, so he had to stay in his room the whole time. So it was really a very interesting thing. But yeah, we knew right off the bat that we were going to need somebody to keep us on track and organized, and also to help facilitate, right? Because that's, I mean, that's, you know, one of the most important things is to get right, is to facilitate properly.
Cindy, quick clarifying question from Marissa. The 35 partners are total across all 3 regions?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
35 across the board.
Yes.
Yeah, and just a note on that, what we found is that having more partners in a room, so if you get beyond 10, 12, 13 partners in a room, there's not enough time to hear what they all have to say, and things start to get a little bit out of control. So you really do want to, you know, sort of keep it well managed so that you do get the feedback that you need in order to make these a success, right?
Yeah, and that's probably a good transition, you know, to start talking a bit about the meetings itself. Oh wait, it just,
What
I
just
guess
happened?
the slide went away. I was like, wait, did we lose everyone? No.
I don't know what just happened.
I just stopped the share, so do you want the
Okay,
slide
perfect.
back on?
Okay, nope, we're
No,
good.
it's fine. But I know, you know, you've been talking about the global meeting where we have everyone together, and then we have meetings every year in the Americas and one in EMEA. And we recently had one at the end of last year in Amsterdam. So it was our last meeting that we've done together so far. And when you look back on that, our most recent one, Cindy, what do you think went well? And anything you would change for next time around?
What went well, I think, well, attendance. We always get really good attendance, which is a sort of a testament to the fact that we're doing it right. We got really good feedback. And this is true for the America session that we ran in October as well. We're really, really good feedback that helped us shape the 2 topics that we were asking about, helped us shape what our thoughts and our future planning is going to be. The timing, so we've kind of learned over the course of 2.5 years, like what to do, what not to do, how many sessions do we run, how many topics do we throw at them, how long do we keep them, how long can you keep them engaged, that sort of thing. So I think we did a good job there. I guess what was less, what I would probably change again or go back to going forward, and this will probably bleed into some best practices. A couple of things that I always, when I'm prepping my presenters, I always try to do is make sure 2 key things. Don't talk too much. You know, so sort of the old Hamilton, talk less, smile more. That, and also don't try to solution something in the moment, because a lot of times we'll have, you know, sort of our go-to-market leaders that are engaged, and they want to solve a problem right there so they can make a sale. And, you know, that's not the point of this, is to respond or get defensive or solution anything in the moment. The other challenge that we had with this time around, due to some timing issues and other meetings and things that were taking place, our executive sponsor wasn't able to be there. So I think the meetings went well. I think the partners were very engaged, but certainly having the executive sponsor in the room, and he's been in the room every other time, that really, I think that helps a lot.
Yes. No, because it definitely demonstrates the commitment.
Yeah.
And you know, minimally, we had the EMEA lead there, so that was
Right.
a nice show of commitment, who stayed for the entire session.
That's right.
But it's really important that the members, you know, what's in it for them. They want to network with each other, and they want access to you and your executives.
That's right.
So that's why it's really critical that they're there, the executive sponsor in particular.
Yeah.
But I think, Cindy, you've done a good job as well of bringing in senior executives from time to time to have a specific role in the meeting. I was just thinking of in our global meeting last spring, right in the middle of the meeting, it was announced that you had done a major acquisition.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was an interesting one, because most of us didn't actually know that the acquisition was happening or that it was being announced in the moment. So we just happened to have our whole global advisory council there. And the morning that the press release went out, we pivoted the topic and talked about that new acquisition, what it meant to our business, and got really interesting feedback from the partners, which, as all of our partner advisory council feedback does, it got bubbled up to the executives, and they've been able to use those as talking points to further validate why the acquisition was so meaningful. So that was an interesting one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, sort of, we threw the agenda out the door.
Exactly. Gotta be agile.
I have a little bit of an advance notice,
A little.
a little bit, yeah, just to happen to be out walking at the right time in the morning meeting. So that's great. But I think in addition to just responding to what's really critically important, because the whole goal of this is to get the feedback you need. And so, as I always say, what's really about, the important thing is about the questions. What are the key questions that you want to ask to the members? Because what are the answers that they might give you back that are going to help you, be better, stronger, faster, cheaper, whatever it is, more successful overall. So when we talk about before every session about what are the right questions that we need to ask for this time around, kind of, how do you take it from there typically, Cindy? How do you
I
want to?
mean, it's an interesting process, right? Because step one is figure out what are the, and we've sort of landed on 2 topics for each advisory council meeting. We tried to do 4, we tried to do 3, and you do start to lose people after a little while. So 2, and we spend, half a day on each topic. So 2 really seems to be kind of the right number. And then we'll throw in a couple of other sessions as well as just those discussionary topics. But finding what those right topics are based on what the company is trying to achieve, right? And how much advance notice we have that something's happening. Like, do we have a product roadmap that we want to get their input on? Let's bring in the product management team and have that discussion. It's getting those people who are going to be the presenters, and sort of the owner of that topic, getting them to hone in on what's the most valuable thing you can hear from the partners, and what will maybe change your strategy if you hear the right thing from them. That's the hardest part when you're, for me, that's the hardest part, is making sure that we're asking the right questions. We have done topic sessions where we have not asked the right questions, and we have gotten feedback that indicates exactly that. So right away when you haven't nailed it, but I think we've gotten better over time in talking to these people who are leading the different topics, making sure they understand, again, what the point is. It's not to present to the partners, it's to get feedback from the partners. So again, talk less, smile more. But really, what's the most important thing you can hear from the partner? If there's one thing that they can tell you, what would that be? And how do you craft a question to answer that? Right?
Yes. Yeah, no, it's really, really important. And thinking about other best practices and running your PAC meetings, are there, there's things to do and then there's things not to do. Any
Yeah.
idea?
First and foremost,
yes.
Well, I should say second, because first is get the questions right. So you get the right feedback. Strong facilitation, right? You have to have somebody, and we are lucky enough to have Catherine, who runs the meeting, right? And keeps us on time and keeps us on track and keeps us focused, and will interrupt people when they're going too long or asked to, go longer. Make sure that we hear from everybody in the room, because sometimes, for example, some of the GSIs and advisories, they can kind of take over a conversation sometimes. So, but we want to hear from all of them. Sometimes, especially if we're in, other regions, or like if we have, folks from Latin America joining the North Americans, right? We want to make sure that we're hearing from them, even though English is their second language and they're not as comfortable sharing. So to go around and you're great at this, going around and making sure that we're hearing from everybody. I think that's really important, that facilitation. Things, again, not to sort of belabor the point, but don't do sales pitch, don't defend, don't talk. It's kind of, what do we say, the 80-20 rule? We want to hear from the partners 80% of the time and us 20% of the time. I'd say it might even be a little bit less from us that we want. But yeah, I mean, those are some best practices for sure. Don't solution it in the moment.
And right. And that's super important, is because it's advisory, right? You're supposed to be listening. And if you're talking and already, it's, like interpersonally, when somebody's talking, if all you're doing is thinking about how you're going to respond, are you really it? And
yeah, another thing too that I would say, and I think I'm seeing a couple of questions pop up, but another thing is, everybody wants to come to this meeting. Everybody internally wants to come to this meeting. We only let people in most of the time who actually have a role to play. What we don't want is people sitting in the back of the room listening just to say, they heard the partner and, they were there, right? We're not giving out participation awards. We want everybody to have an impact on what's going on in the room. So that's another, I think, best practice as well, because it does fill up a room, right? And then partners get a little bit more hesitant to speak their minds. Or some do anyway. We have others who have no problem with it.
I want to shout it from the mountaintops, but that's right. And that does become a bit of a political struggle to make sure that you're saying no. I mean, I can say no to anyone in the room, but the people getting into the room, that's the hard part of saying, like, no, you have to have a role, right?
Yeah.
You just can't be an observer.
That's right.
And also,
if you just happen to be in town for the meeting, that doesn't mean you're done.
another part of that question, I know we said we would get to this at the end, but it kind of goes with ratio, the balance of attendees, and we recommend 2 to 1, but that doesn't always happen. 2 CAB members for every internal employee. That's hard to get to that ratio, but
I think we're probably lower than that. I would say if we've got, I don't know, maybe 4, maybe 5 CyberArkers in the room, right, at any given point in time. And topic presenters may come and go, right? They may not stay for the whole meeting. They may do their session and leave, right? So if we have 4 or 5 CyberArkers in the room at any given point in time, but we've got 13.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're a little bit lower on that ratio, because we want to make the meeting about the partners and what they have to say, not about what we have to say.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So, talking about that 80-20, it really kind of morphs, Cindy, into meeting engagement. And so how do you keep your members engaged throughout the meeting, while you're making sure you're getting the insights that CyberArk needs from these partners?
So you play a big part of that, keeping them engaged.
I'm here for.
True.
Yes.
I'm not just saying that because you're here. I do. The people that are in the room that show up are very good about making sure that the partners are engaging with each other, because that's the other thing, right? When we do this session, we present on the topic to give them enough background that they need to know to be able to answer questions. And then we break them out most of the time into smaller groups to have them work amongst themselves and answer a series of questions. We'll usually have a CyberArker engaging with them as well and asking additional follow-up questions, not to answer questions, but to give them more to think about as they're, as they're working through, right? What else? What am I missing? How do we keep them engaged? I mean, we also usually, not usually, we always have a social activity, either, the night before or the night of or something like that. So they've also gotten to know each other and they're developing relationships too. And that helps them stay engaged because they've all got relationships with each other, especially when you get to the end of the 2-year tenure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's kind of morph over to that, Cindy. So you just did your first ever membership refresh because people had been there 2 years.
Yeah.
And I remember at the meeting where it was announced, like, yes, thank you. Your 2 years is up and maybe we'll see some of you again at the next meeting.
Right.
So talk about how CyberArk approached that, and was that important to freshen up the membership?
It's really important because, I won't say partners come and go, but you start to see, again, new trusted relationships and trusted advisors that come into the mix, right? As partners spin up, others may spin down. It's just a natural evolution of an ecosystem. And you don't want to, get groupthink, right? So I think it's good to bring in new members. It is really important to maintain the relationship, which is why we ask for a 2-year commitment. But then after a couple of years, bring in some new members and start to get fresh blood and fresh thoughts and fresh regions and fresh industries and, practices and things like that, right? So what we did was somewhat similar to the first time around. When we created the advisory board, we sent out a nomination form to all of our channel account managers. And we said, if you think your partner fits this criteria, nominate them, fill out this form, send it back to me. I worked with the regional channel leaders to figure out, okay, we got 40 nominations. Who are the 13 we're going to pick, right? Because we knew we had a maximum based on budgets and things that make sense, right? And again, the number of people you can have in a room and have it work.
The number you were going to renew.
Right. And that was the other thing, right? One of the things we wanted to see from the channel account managers was, did they think that partner should be renewed? Now, we had some opinions as the advisory council sort of management team, if you will. We had some opinions on who we wanted to keep on the board, just because not only did they provide great feedback, they've got sort of these different roles that give them a lot of insight into various elements of the market that we're interested in. So we had some ideas, but it was interesting to match up who we wanted to see remain, as well as the fresh blood. So yeah, that was sort of how we did it. Now, the other thing
They'll probably say they didn't want their client on the advisory council anymore.
it wasn't that they said they didn't want it. They weren't nominated again. There were some that just weren't nominated again, right? And there were many who were. And interestingly, I mean, this is I don't know if we're going to get into like success metrics and things like that, but one of the things that I'm probably the most proud of is that when we announced that it was sort of like, thank you, your class just graduated, and maybe we'll see you in the fall, and maybe we won't. 100% of all partner advisory council members at one point came over to me or to Chris and said, please, I want to be on it again. Right?
Yes,
100% of them, which I thought was, like, we're doing something right here, right?
That's amazing.
Catherine, did you just freeze? You there?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I'll turn off my camera and come back and see.
Yeah.
That's all.
Better.
All right.
Better.
Hi. Good. I'm
Hi.
not. It is freezing here, but I'm fortunately inside. So that, and a lot of people are afraid to do membership refreshes because, like, oh no,
I don't want to make them mad.
No, I'm not gonna make them mad. They're gonna take their software, and
Yeah.
the salespeople are gonna be mad. And I think there's some best practices around doing it. Like, you don't have the salespeople kick them off, retire them, right?
At all. Not at all. In fact, nobody even knows that and I guess sales would be the channel members in this scenario, since it's a partner advisory council. But yeah, nobody would even know that the channel account managers were involved in the process at all, right?
Right.
So all of that is sort of internal, under the covers. They just, all of a sudden they hear from me again, hey, welcome to the new, the new class, or they don't, and they never know that there was a new class formed.
Probably can figure that out, but
yeah,
I think that's just super important to make sure that it's done with respect, but it's just important to do it because you need the vitality. Maybe if they haven't been participating for whatever reason, which it wasn't really an issue for the PAC, but you want to be able to gracefully move some people on and move new people on board.
Well, it's true. And to that point, I mean, we had a few partners that we had invited and had agreed to participate in our first class that never showed up for a meeting, or maybe showed up for one meeting. So, based on their engagement, that was another thing that we did. I should have mentioned, I did go through an evaluation process of the current advisory council and looked at their engagement level. And that's how I determined, based on that information, were they individuals that we would want to, bring back onto the advisory council, or would they just be taking up space for somebody else who might actually show up and participate?
Yeah, and as I'm sure you've heard me say before, Cindy, I always say an empty seat is a wasted seat.
100%. 100%. It's feedback we're not getting.
Participating.
Yeah.
Wasted seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So just, you mentioned a bit about impact and how you measure impact. So we can certainly talk about that. How do you know that the PAC has been successful? How has it been worthwhile to do this for CyberArk?
I mean, again, like when everybody on the PAC says they want to come back, you got to believe it's been successful. Our executives seem to have been happy with the feedback that we've been giving them. So I think internally everybody knows that it's successful. So that's a good thing. So that engagement, that's impactful. The relationships that the partners develop have been great for them. And in fact, we've even seen some partnerships between members just from meeting each other, interacting and engaging at these PAC, meetings. Like, one partner wants to expand into another region and they've met somebody at a global meeting, and now all of a sudden they're partners, right? And so they're helping each other in each region. So that's been interesting. What else? I think those are the relationships. I should also say, the relationships that we build with the PAC members. Again, they're trusted advisors, right? And so like,
Chips changed with them being.
yeah, yeah. And they get closer in a lot of cases, right? And I mean, there are examples where, well, I just gave you one today, Catherine. We had a PAC member, we have a PAC member who is, you know, a repeat customer who just sent me a baby picture this morning of his new son, right? And so we develop these relationships, which certainly does help from a, you know, an overall CyberArk standpoint, because when we need something, whether it's information from them, help at an account, whatever it is, like we can text these guys, we can call them, and we know that they're going to answer and they're going to give us feedback. So I think that's super helpful.
And so between the two formal meetings here, the global meeting and the regional meetings, what is there formal engagement between the meetings, or is it informal? Not that it matters either way. It's especially
It's both. It's both. So there have been times where we've scheduled as a follow-up, we've scheduled webinars for PAC members to give them more information on a topic that because, you know, we don't want to present to them during the PAC meetings. There are some topics they ask us to come back and present to them. So we've done that. That's, you know, sort of the we're getting everybody together in a virtual way. We've had opportunities where partners have been able to get engaged with customers. So I had our customer success team reach out to me. They do monthly webinars for customers, and they get 1,000 people, 1,500 people. And they said, we want to do a partner webinar highlighting some great things that some of our partners have done to the customer community. So I went to our PAC members and, you know, gave them first dibs, and they've been able to generate business, you know, there as well. So some of it's formal, some of it's informal, and some of it's, again, based on like an opportunity or an account or something very specific, like we're doing an acquisition, we want to get your input on this, you're a trusted advisor. So, you know, sometimes it's more ad hoc.
They're definitely called on to work in between the sessions.
They are. And you know what else I should also add? I think one of the things that keeps them coming back and keeps them engaged is that, and this it probably falls into the best practice category as well. At the beginning of each meeting, one of the things we do is talk about the things that we heard from the last meeting and what have we done with that feedback since we saw them last. So we're constantly showing them that it's not just sort of a one and done kind of Barney, I love you, you love me meeting. We're actually doing stuff with this feedback that we're getting from them. So I think that's also super important.
I was actually going to ask you about that, Cindy, because you know, I would say that's best practice, in all caps, best practice.
Yeah.
Because in order for it to be truly an advisory council and not an event, right? You have to like, you know, just circle the wagons and say, right, here's what we heard last time, here's what we did. And based on that, we're going to either go forward with your recommendation or not. And here's why not.
Right.
And you do that at the beginning of every face-to-face meeting. And I think that's just outstanding, because it shows the members that they are being heard and that you are taking their feedback seriously and doing something with it. So it's reinforcing that it's a good use of their time to spend.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, you've heard them say, like, we want to make sure that, like, all we want is to be able to give you advice and guidance and have you use us for this purpose. So I think it's pretty meaningful that, you know, that we're able to do that. And that's how we kick off each in-person PAC meeting.
And they know that by doing this, this is not only going to make you and the CyberArk more successful, it's going to make them more successful, because you're going to help meet their needs. And that gets back to why advisory councils are so important to do right, because it's a mutual success back and forth.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes through kind of all the questions that I had, Cindy. But I know, Tatiana, you've been collecting some from those folks who have joined us today.
Yeah, there's lots of questions here. I'll just start with this whole webinar has been advice, but what are 3 key pieces of advice you'd share with a company that is planning on building a CAB? How do we plan for success?
Executive sponsorship is key, right? making the meeting about the partners. So making sure you hear from them, from each and every one of them, and then using the feedback that you get to, to solve the problem that you've asked them to solve. And as Catherine said, not, you can't always take all of their advice, and you may get like differing opinions on how to solve things. But to at least explain what you've done with their feedback, I think is very important. I've got a million more beyond 3, but let's just start with those 3.
I think those are great.
There's so many, and we're almost running out of time, but Lynette asked about, is there a benefit or general recommendation on whether to include customers of similar industries versus customers from very different industries? And earlier somebody asked about, how do you deal with conversations at CAB meetings with competitors? So those are kind of 2 different questions.
Competitors in the room, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's interesting, right? Because in the partner world, right, and it's probably a little bit different than the customer world. In the partner world, with the partner advisory boards, they are all competitors in some way, shape, or form, right? So part of it has to be that they've developed a trusted relationship amongst themselves too, and that happens over time, that they get more and more comfortable sharing information, and they never share proprietary information. It's more, what are they seeing in the market? What are their customers asking of them? Things like that. So I think that is an interesting distinction between the partner advisory councils and customer, where the individuals are always essentially competitors. About the different industries, I also think that probably applies a little bit less for us, because they're all in the security industry, right? We've got our advisory council members are running, for us, we're identity security. So what that means is we secure access to, and we ensure we know who you are, and you are who you say you are, and you have the right authority to access the thing that you're trying to access. And so we're dealing with people who are running these identity security practices, right? So it's a pretty specific area in security.
It's almost like it's its own vertical, right?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Council, and you can do a general.
Yeah.
I've never found it's been, when I ran AT&T's boards, we had Amex, Visa, MasterCard all on it, the same board, and there was never an issue, because they're only going to share what they're allowed to share, and they had great interest in learning from each other what was going on at their company.
That's a great point, because I mean, much like that, we've got PwC, Deloitte, Accenture, KPMG, right? So we've got all of the global SIs and advisories in some capacity. And it's the same thing, right? They want to learn from each other. They want to, so I think that's an important thing.
Yeah, I think people overthink competitors.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Chantel asks about, is it a best practice to deploy a meeting survey after each of the quarterly or so meetings to formally gather feedback?
We do a survey at the end of every meeting that we run here at Ignite, and it's super important. And we even ask questions about, would you be willing to, do a press release or do a video story, so the marketing teams can get some ready-made customers when they have their next event. But it's important because it gives you a baseline of scores, how valuable the meeting was, topics that they want for the next time, and you can see meeting over meeting, are the scores improving, or are they at least staying at a certain level? I don't know if Cindy, you have extra things you want to say.
I would just say Catherine is militant about ensuring that everybody
there before they leave the room. Otherwise,
they can't leave the room until they finish that form and turn it in, like militant. So we do get feedback from every member, which is super important. I think, I don't know, Tatiana, I thought I saw a question about like, how do we select the topics?
Oh yeah, you can go ahead.
And that's one of the ways, is from these feedback forms, because that's one of the questions is, what else would you like to hear about? There's also a really interesting exercise that Catherine leads prior to finishing the session, which is, I think we call it Partnership for Success, right? And they sort of vote on the things that they think we should talk about.
Yeah.
What topics that they want to hear about. Yeah.
It's like we multi-vote, basically.
Right. So there are those 2 things. And then the other is sort of the other thing that we'll consider is, what are the big rocks for the company for the year that we really need their input on? Again, is there a roadmap? Is there I think a year and a half ago, we were looking at an entire repackaging effort. And so we have product management come in and talk about like a really early preview of what this repackaging would look like and get feedback on that. So, sometimes these global company initiatives will come into play and we'll sort of override a partner request to say, no, now we need really serious input on this, right?
And to allow enough time for the topic. It's not like a half an hour of here or an hour. We don't do anything like less than an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Where we're really trying to dig in and get deep feedback.
Awesome. We have 2 minutes. So many questions. Well, we can't get to everyone, but somebody asked about how do I train correct the facilitators presenters when they're senior member levels of my org. So Catherine, can you talk about the prep? So kind of what the session leaders, and we have just 2 minutes, and then during the meeting.
Yeah,
in 2 minutes.
Okay.
We need a whole webinar just on this.
Well,
but.
actually, we've done whole trainings on this, right, Tatiana, you and me. So, if somebody internally and it's a senior exec is the one chosen to do the facilitation, I would try to, it's hard if you're in the company to manage an executive in your company. That's why I think, people like to hire Ignite for example, because I can be the bad cop in the room and say anything, even to the executive sponsor, like, we got to move on, here that we're getting off topic, what have you. But I would just probably suggest trying to do things that aren't all just in the it's like, can you break it up and do some breakouts or do some whiteboarding, something so that there are other ways to get people's input. But that's really tricky when you have the executive being the facilitator, and most of them, quite frankly, don't want to do it.
That's right. That's been my experience too. They don't always want to do it, right? And you do a lot of prep work before you walk into a meeting to make sure that they know what the ground rules are. And
we can talk in. Yes, go ahead, Tatiana.
So we're right at time. So just what are your final words? Thank you everyone for joining. We have so many questions and they're perfect for future webinar topics and further, maybe we'll have Cindy back at some point.
Oh, I'd love to.
Your final words. Cindy,
I'm happy to take a look at any of the other questions that we couldn't get to, and maybe we can send out some kind of response to that if it's appropriate. But I just want to say thank you very much. This was fun. It's always fun with Catherine and you, Tatiana. I have a good time with you guys, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about CyberArk's advisory council. It's been super successful for us, and largely because of what Ignite has done for us.
Thank you. No, you guys are a model client. I love working with you. So props back your way. And, I was just looking at Lori's question about, do we observe cabs and let you know how to improve that? That is actually something we at Ignite, there's all sorts of things we can do to help you out from an advisory capacity to running your cabs. So there's many things we can do to help you. And at the end of the day, you want it to be successful. It's not an event. It's not a check in the box. If it's a check in the box, customers are going to notice, the partners they're going to stop showing up. So you've got to have that executive sponsorship, like Cindy said. You've got to ask the right questions that are going to help your company and that the people in the room are suited to answer. And then you've got to do something with that guidance and come back and report back out. Those were perfect, Cindy. That's a recipe for a successful advisory.
You taught me well.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.